When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ledlow, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, folks. Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, brought to you by Ledlow Security Group, and eventually here, Salescast is going to be a sponsor of the Fearless Mindset. We just got an announcement, so stay tuned for that. And also make the announcement, we just hit 10,000 downloads. I found out today. I haven't been in the studio here in Irvine, and I don't know how many months has it been, Chris? Been a while. So anyway, we have a new guest, as you guys can see in the studio. This fine young looking gentleman came in from Texas. He's on a detail as we speak, and he wanted to share some knowledge with all the youngsters coming into the industry. We feel that youngsters coming in the industry need knowledge, and they're coming in. He has some ideas and thoughts on that. John Fisher, thanks for being here.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Yes, and I mean, as other guests have said on the show, it's a continuing gaining of knowledge. I mean, the moment you think that you know it all, you're already behind the power curve. You try to constantly learn, try to constantly adjust, adapt, improvise to what the situation, what the client, what the venue is, the event, whether it's public, private. You can do, there's a lot of aspects in it. And I know that you specifically for this session wanted to talk about advances, but there's many aspects, and there's a lot of process in doing an advance. And I think really how well you do the advance ultimately determines the outcome. Because Absolutely. you work on, you brainstorm, and you're constantly thinking about those contingencies, those what ifs. You may not be able to fully act them out, but as long as you start and you have that mindset going into that, and you're thinking about it, and before, after, and during, that's gonna. I mean, it's. And you constantly learn from your mistakes. You learn from what you did good. You learn from those around you.
Right.
Hence why I reached out to you, is so that way I can expand my base of knowledge and be able to apply things. And as some of your other guests, networking. Right.
And John's a really good networker. We met almost a year ago.
Actually, I think it was a little bit. I think it was pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, yeah. And John flew into Beverly Hills with his principal and on a detail, and we connected. And just so the audience knows, John is here in the studio with hardly any sleep. He hasn't. Would you sleep 2 hours and 24 hours?
I haven't even done that yet.
So this guy's a Marine, and he flies all over the world.
I have, yes.
And he's been with various high-profile people that he protects. He comes with, if you look him up on LinkedIn, you can find him, and he's there. And he works with the state of Texas, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, and just so that way there's clarification.
Okay.
Any time that I've done that, it's been on my own time.
Oh, okay.
You know, the principal wasn't there.
For the record.
It wasn't, it was in our own times that we met after hours, such as like we're doing this. It's an after hours. I'm on my time.
Right. Okay.
You know, because I can't mix those two.
Okay. So John wanted to make sure that everybody understood that in the audience. So anybody checking him out, this is on his time. The government's not paying for him to be here. So he's got extensive background, extensive experience. I say equivalent to the Secret Service level of experience, and not at the presidential level, but at his principal level. He's been all over the world with two high-profile people.
Well, and you know, when a lot of people, as far as for a lack of better terms, dumb it down, we are considered the Secret Service of the state.
There you go, folks. There you have it. So the reason why I want to bring John is John's got so much experience and knowledge. He worked as weren't you in state level patrol for a while before you moved on into protective side of things?
Yes, I was. After the Marine Corps, I ended up getting on with DPS, and I worked the road as a road troop for about 8 years prior to applying and going through the recruiting process and the boarding and the background and the interview process for the detail.
Okay. So a lot of experience. You got to see the patrol side of things in Texas, and then he moved into the protective side of the government. And we've had a lot of conversations. Actually, John's going to be joining us when we launch the Ronin training system. Frank Mir, who you guys all know, is a 2-time world heavyweight champion with the UFC. He's going to be doing acrobatics. Ron Owens, the other partner. He's our Army veteran, also the owner of his company out there in Oklahoma. And we're going to have John join us as a instructor on advances because that's what he does. He knows it well.
It's an honor and a pleasure. And I as well as trying to help with the knowledge that I have, I also hope to gain knowledge in that process as well.
Yeah, so it's going to be definitely an added benefit to have him with us. And I'm not sure when the course is going to be, when we're launching. Ron Owens is working with his marketing team and all that, the back end stuff. So we'll be pushing some stuff on that here probably in a couple of months. But the reason John's here is just he wants to share his story and talk about advances and the details that are so critical in protecting somebody, which Secret Service does really well. They haven't had not one incident since Ronald Reagan. And I say that's a pretty darn good record.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, it goes into, first of all, they have the budget and they have the manpower. I've been fortunate that since I've been on the detail, we have grown considerably, but then also we have been on a smaller detail where it's only been a 4-man detail. Sometimes we can roll, depending on events, we tap into resources that are available to us and use those assets where they're needed, when they're needed, depending on the threat assessment, the risk management, the venue. Is it a public, private event? There's many different facets to look into on being able to have those assets and resources available to you. And in the private sector, all that costs money. And that's one of the things that I'm wanting to learn and gain my knowledge on is in the private sector, how to better manage with the limited financial aspect and manpower.
Do they ask you to pay out of your pocket sometimes because it's such a limited budget?
No, no.
Gifts, no free gifts.
No, and sometimes we do just because of the nature of the beast to get the job done and to turn out the best product we can. We do spend our own money that isn't reimbursable or is not an expense, and that's just, for a lack of better terms, the cost of doing business.
Right.
So that way you build that understanding and that rapport, because you not only have to build it with the client or the principal, you also have to build it with those entities that you frequent and that you that you're a patron of. Because just as an example, when we were talking about advances, I was on a campaign that had different candidates from around the state, and we have our process that we do things, and I can't get into too much of details of what we do, but we reach out and we have our operating procedure that we do. And there was a group meeting with all the different security details, and we went through the motions and we listened to what was going on. We asked questions when it was appropriate, but we knew that afterwards that we had our own private meeting with our point of contact. So I'm not going to say where they're from or anything like that, but there was 2 individuals that was with one principal. That was their advance team. And we went through, and these guys were overbearing, a little too aggressive for the event. They didn't read the demographics and didn't have the situational awareness. And they came off brazen. And they were, and you could tell that we did our secondary advance. Day of the event, they were watching. They were looking at what we were doing, and we went our ways. A couple months went by. The same broadcast company was holding another debate at another location. Mm-hmm. Same guys were there with that same candidate. And they came in and they started saying, we want this, we want this, we want this, and we want this.
Demanding, were they?
Oh, I mean, it was incredible how demanding they were. And it just rubbed them wrong. And with our point of contact, we had gone through our steps and we were going to have our meeting after we had the group meeting. And I kid you not, as soon as we were done, we let everybody dispersed. We kind of just huddled around, started talking a little bit, talking shop.
Yeah.
And our point of contact came up and said, everything those guys asked for, y'all are getting. And we're like, cool, we're done. Because they saw the way that we operated. And you have to carry yourself in a professional manner.
Right.
But you can also enjoy it too. You don't have to be so stone cold. And your personality, and I think Elijah Shaw on one of your said, the verbal judo.
Right.
You have to bring it down. You're there for a professional purpose. There's things that you would like to see, but you also have to bring it down to a personal level and communicate with that person.
And for the audience listening, we're talking about protecting an individual. So the verbiage we're using is like standard operating procedures, almost very structured. So if you're listening, you go, what are you guys talking about? We're talking about protecting somebody. So if you're listening, you kind of trying to figure out what are we doing? John Fisher is on a protective detail on a high profile figure in the government. And we're talking about different strategies that is being used in bodyguarding somebody, if that makes sense. So carry on, John.
Oh, sorry. And that's the thing. It can go down a rabbit hole, and I'm passionate about what I do, and I enjoy what I do. I enjoy the group of guys that I work with. I enjoy meeting new people. I enjoy getting those contacts. You build that rapport out in the field, and it goes with you. And there's guys. I've been on an advance. It happened to be my very first lead, and years went by. And I get a call from my point of contact at the hotel. And he goes, hey, so I hear your guys coming in. And I'm like, news to me. But it goes to show that I left a good lasting impression, because as soon as he heard that scuttlebutt, he reached out to me to see what we were needing and if I was going to be on that trip. And I was like, I have no idea, but if I know that it comes down if it comes down the line, and I find out about it, I will put the lead person in contact with you. I appreciate you reaching out, because honestly, the schedules are so dynamic. The business is dynamic. You have to be flexible. You have to, learn to improvise, adjust, and adapt and overcome.
Right. And just for the audience to know, John is the most passionate guy I have met in the executive protection industry. Well, I wouldn't say executive protection industry because you are in the government sector, but he's the most passionate. He loves what he does. He enjoys it like I used to enjoy it before life hits you. My dad got cancer and all that. But he just reminds me of the passion I used to have years ago when I did the Saudi royal family stuff. And meeting John has kind of reignited my passion in the industry and got me thinking of a bigger picture of what I could do in the industry again. And I got to give a lot of credit to John's influence in my life. That's why I wanted to have him on, because I wanted to share to the audience, especially that new generation coming in that don't know what they don't know.
That's pretty much exactly it. You don't know what you don't know because you haven't done it long enough. And, you can several others. I'm still reading books that I'm learning from others that you've had on this show to help expand that knowledge and take that little, as you coin it, golden nugget, and see how I can apply it to make my end product that much better.
Your end product. You sound like a businessman, John. Are you sure you're in the government sector?
I am. I've been blessed that I'm coming up on my 20th year with the department.
20 years.
Yes, 12 of it's been with executive protection.
Wow.
And 8 of it was on the road, and I enjoyed I miss working the road. I miss getting out there, and
he just thrives on it.
Interacting with people. I miss traffic stuffs.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily miss the adrenaline dumps now. And with the way the traffic's gotten, at least in the area where I used to work.
And he just drove down 2.5 hours from Beverly Hills to be in studio with us. And he's about ready to blow a gasket.
That was
25 miles an hour on the 405.
Yeah. And
that would kill anybody.
Well, I mean, in Texas, when you measure distance, you measure it in time, not in miles. Because I mean, I think you'd asked me where I'm at, and I was like 26 miles, but it was still almost 40 minutes out. And I was like, 26 miles, I can do that in 15 minutes.
In
back
Texas.
home.
Right. And you're based out of Austin.
Yes.
Okay. And folks, John does a lot of missions per week with his client or principal, the assignee. And how many missions do you probably average a week?
Well, I mean, I guess it would be on what you say missions. I mean, sometimes we'll work 7-10 days straight and maybe get a day off. Our schedule is very dynamic.
Very dynamic. Okay.
Yeah, let's just say your days off may not be your days off. So
Planning,
you can't plan it. If you plan to do something on a weekend or 2 days off that you have back to back,
right,
you can plan on it getting disrupted. If you're planning on something, you do it. But to answer your question, well, and it's not just me. I mean, it's a team. It's a group of guys, great guys that I work with. Me personally, I could do in one day, I could be in 3 different cities.
One day, 3 cities.
Yes.
That's like being a bodyguard with a talent on a tour or something.
Well, and
that's crazy.
Well, and you can do that because you could be that's as a body agent or as a lead agent in advance.
Where do you see most mistakes made?
A lot of the mistakes that I see and that I try to prevent is thinking of those contingencies. You have a site. Okay. It's one site, but there's multiple ways of ingress, egress. Mm-hmm. Where's the event happening? Is it private or public? There's you try to do your primary, secondary, tertiary. You do that on your arrival and departures. You do that on your routes. You do that on hard versus hold rooms. So I know I kind of went off a topic.
It's okay. We're having a conversation.
Yeah, it's
it's just a conversation. We're kind of freestyling it.
Yeah. What was the question? I'm
trying to track back in my head.
Yeah, because we were talking about missions, and then we're talking about
the critical.
How many how many
missions a week?
Well, and then because you have and you do that for each location.
So three cities in a day, you said.
Yeah, if you do 3 cities in a day, you may have multiple events in that one city. So you could do,
wow.
Depending on who it is, you can have
21, 30 missions a week.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's not including the OTRs, off the record movements.
That's craziness.
You
and you guys, you do your own protective intelligence gathering too, right?
We do. We have, we're fortunate enough that we have intelligence units, but then we also have to tap into the local resources of where we're visiting as well and tap into those resources.
And you guys travel out of state?
We travel out of state. We travel out of country.
Holy smokes. So it's almost like the president at that magnitude of scale.
Well, I mean, you figure.
That's crazy.
Absolutely.
And then there's business dealings going on outside of the states and whatever conversations are going on. Absolutely. And you almost have to have like a classified secret security clearance just to be doing what you're doing. Is
you become the three monkeys.
The three monkeys? Can you elaborate?
Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil.
Kind of like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas?
Yeah. I mean, you tune out stuff and you don't remember it because there's so much information that's being processed, especially when you're on site in there, but you're still listening to what's going on. You're listening to the crowd. You're looking at the climate, the temperament,
right,
the demographics, the geographics. All of that plays into those events, and you're filtering in this information. I remember when I first started this, and you go to a public versus a private, a fundraising event. Well, okay, if you're at a fundraising event. A lot of donors, people that are there for him, they're the ones that are supporting the campaign. They're not that much of a threat. Those that are inside that little area, because they're all invited guests.
It's a controlled environment, right?
It is. It's a controlled environment, but I didn't know any difference when I first started.
Right.
So, you go to one event where there's 30, 40, 50 people, you're smoked after that because you're sitting there looking at everybody. You're looking at eyes, you're looking at, hands, you're looking at waist, you're, looking at body posture. And these are all people that are, writing checks.
Big ones.
And it took a while to learn about that. And then you start to learn how to be able to scan across the crowd and pick out the anomaly. What doesn't fit? Where doesn't it go? And you become better and you don't get so exhausted on that, because I remember I was still on what we call the FTO program, and I was at an inauguration, outdoor event, several hundred, if not thousands of people.
Wow.
And I'm, looking at everybody. I'm like, holy cow.
You have eye twitches and face twitches from all the stress.
Yeah, probably. My wife would be a better tell on that one. But yeah, and I've been out on the road so long at times.
What's the longest run you've had on the road?
8 months.
Straight?
We'd have a day or two off where we could come home and change out laundry, but that was about it. But we've done laundry on the road. We've bounced from, I've been from California to Virginia to Iowa to
Are you guys in the Greyhound bus for moving around, or
no? We're flying and renting cars.
Cars, okay.
Yeah,
wow.
And I'm one of those. I remember I was so exhausted. Bless my wife's heart. I woke up. And I was still laying down, and I'm like, where am I? And I'm still trying to figure out well, then somebody moved next to me, and I'm like, holy crap, what did I do last night? And I'm trying to sit there and remember who it is. And I'm like, I don't want to get up because I don't want to wake up who's next to me because I don't know who's there. And I'm like, is somebody playing a prank on me? And I laid there for probably about 5 or 10 minutes trying to process this information. And then I finally had to sit up, and I was like, oh, thank God I'm at home. I didn't even recognize my own house.
Wow.
Because, I mean, it's, It's, and in that was probably one of the best learning experiences to get the demographics of people, not only in Texas, but throughout the country. People
are so different in so different areas.
Absolutely. And then the international experience.
Holy crap. That's got to even be even worse.
But, how you deal with, or I say deal with, how you talk with and how you connect with people in California is not the way you connect with people in Iowa or in New Hampshire.
True. I never think about that.
So you have
cultures.
Absolutely. And, you know, knowing those different demographics of where you're at in New York is a completely different monster.
Is it more extreme than California, New York?
Oh, yeah.
More rigid, harder?
Oh, yes. They're much more aggressive there.
Really?
Oh, in my experience and what I've experienced.
That kind of stress, the death rate must be higher. Strokes and heart attacks.
Well, then, and you learn good coping because, like, one of your recent guests, you know, said that, and you mimic that by living out in, you know, you live out in the woods, or you know, in a small
paradise,
in a small town.
Paradise.
Honestly, you know, it's funny. You have to be a people person. I enjoy being around people, but I also hate people. I want to get that shirt so badly and flight that says I hate people, because when I get home, I don't want to go out. I just want to stay home. I want to mess with the dogs. I want to build something. I want to work on my truck, work on and go camping.
Decompress.
Absolutely.